My name is Lukey Forbes, and I am the campaign coordinator with the Hudson Catskill Housing Coalition. We're here today fighting for the No Slavery in New York Act, a constitutional amendment that will end slavery and forced labor as a punishment for crime in New York State prisons and jails. This issue is personal to me as someone formerly incarcerated. When I worked in the kitchen, I couldn't call out of work. If I couldn't make it to work one day, then I would be written up and risk being transferred to a different facility. After getting fed up with my work conditions, I submitted grievances, and the guards retaliated against me by taking sneakers from other inmates that they weren't supposed to have and telling them it was my fault, attempting to urge my peers into harming me for them. There are so many ways that they can use forced labor against us inside. Being able to refuse work would be a huge deal for workers behind bars and will be one step closer to being seen as workers, as human beings who deserve dignity and basic human rights. The No Slavery in New York Act has 70+ co-sponsors. And leadership in both the Senate and Assembly have committed to moving it forward this session.
That's right.
Let's hear from some of our champions and why this bill is important to pass now. First, I want to introduce our lead Senate sponsor, Senator Myrie from Brooklyn.
All right.
Just gotta say that from Brooklyn part again.
All right,
Brooklyn in the house. Look, we got our sleeves rolled up, literally. We got 3 days left in this session. And what we are proposing today is not a radical proposition. What we are proposing is actually very simple. No one should be a slave in the state of New York.
That's right.
Period.
That's right.
Makes sense.
Truth to power.
That's not radical.
It makes sense.
That's not a crazy proposition. We're not asking for anything ridiculous. We're saying that no person in the state of New York should be forced to work. Now, you heard from Lukey earlier. I had the opportunity to teach in Auburn Correctional Facility when I was in law school. And some of the best human beings that I know were students in that class. Those individuals, the model incarcerated individual, had less rights simply because they were incarcerated. We told them that while we have a major discussion in this country about race, and we talk about the original sin of slavery, we want you to be a slave. And we are gonna pay you, if we pay you, slave wages. That is not right. We cannot stand for that.
Not at all.
So I am so excited to be with all of you today, because the only reason that we're gonna get this bill done is because of all of you.
That's
so
right.
give yourselves a round of applause.
That's right.
And with my brother Harvey Epstein in the Assembly, all of the colleagues that have joined, we are gonna get this done before the session is up. And then we're gonna have the separate conversation going forward about what we do with incarcerated individuals that choose to work, but are getting paid pennies on the dollar.
That's right.
So let's get this done. Let's get it done before Thursday. And let's finally end slavery in the state of New York. Thank you, everybody.
What do we want? Freedom. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Freedom!
Do we want it?
Now! Next up, we have our Assembly sponsor, Assembly Harvey Epstein from Manhattan.
Yeah! That's right. Give me some play too.
How y'all feeling out there?
All right.
So it's been a long road on this bill, but here we see Last Friday coming out of the Judiciary Committee in the Assembly. Today's coming out of the Rules Committee in the Senate. We feel like it's coming to the end, that we're going to get it done this year.
Gonna get it done.
But it only happens because we're here and we're fighting together.
That's right.
Without all of us telling their stories, talking about the struggles, really understanding how slavery works today in the United States, having a real conversation with each other around enslavement and poverty and government abusing its authority against incarcerated people gets us to this point today. Now, this is a point of many points. Once we get this done, we're going to have to do it again in the next session. And then we're going to have to get it before the voters. And then we're going to have the real conversation about what wage incarcerated people should have. What benefits are they entitled to? Could you imagine a day where someone gets out of prison and has $10,000 or maybe $20,000 in their bank account to put her first month's rent or security down on an apartment? Could you imagine they're able to go back to their community with money in their pocket to stabilize their lives? We have a long road ahead of us. We understand that, but it's a road we're going to take together.
That's right.
I really want to thank Senator Myrie for all his leadership. You know, without him, we would not be where we are today. And so many of my Assembly colleagues who stand with us. We have 50 co-sponsors on this bill.
That's right.
It's amazing. Just here alone, we have Assemblymember Kellis, Assemblymember Simon, Raga, Bashat Hermelin, Gibbs, standing with us just here today. And we are going to continue to stand together because this struggle is our struggle. This struggle is a human rights struggle. This struggle is to end slavery and the institutions that support slavery. Government who's benefiting by slave labor. It is our time and our opportunity to change it together. 13th forward.
13 forward! 13 forward! 13 forward! 13 forward!
I'm gonna go ahead and acknowledge that we have Assemblywoman, I'm sorry, I don't want to pronounce, Ranice Bashat. I don't want to box your name, I'm sorry about that. And then I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Brad Holliman, I'm sorry, the chair of the Judiciary Committee. He's not here right now? Okay, he just stepped away. So the next person I'm gonna pass it on is to Assemblywoman Ann Simone of Brooklyn.
Let's go, Joanne.
That's all right, Brooklyn!
How lucky am I to be representing Brooklyn and to share my district with the fabulous Zellner Myrie.
All right!
Senator Myrie.
So this was a bill that when it came around, I signed on right away. As some of you know, I spent years doing employment discrimination law, and obviously the conditions for workers is critically important to me. And workers, whether they are incarcerated or not, deserve to be treated fairly. Right. And what we are doing in New York is absolutely unconscionable.
That's right.
So we have just reinstituted slave labor and involuntary servitude, that you can't take a day off, and if you do, you will be punished or retaliated against. That is really unconscionable. I hate to use that word again, but that's really the right word. So I am very, very happy that we are really making forward progress, 13 forward,
That's right.
on this bill. We'll get this on the floor this week, get this passed, and then we will move on to get it passed again and send it to the people. I can't imagine that people in New York will not want to support this when it comes to them in a referendum, because nobody wants to see the value of their work be pennies on the dollar. Nobody else would accept it. We shouldn't expect anybody who is incarcerated to accept it either. So thank you. Thank you all for the great work that you've done.
Thank you.
Bringing your experiences, making sure we know what's going on, and let's get this done. Thank you.
That's right.
Forward!
All right.
Up next, we have Senator Robert Jackson.
Okay, RJ.
All right.
Senator, you got got it. You got it.
We got it to go 13 forward. 13 forward. 13 forward. Let's go. Come on.
I know that's right. Yeah.
So, first, let me thank all of you for being here, and to my colleagues for championing this bill. Obviously, I'm told that it's been 158 years since the true emancipation of enslaved people in the United States, yet we find ourselves in the 21st century embarking on a mission to close the loopholes that have led to the proliferation of a different form of slavery. And most of those people look like us here.
Come on now.
Black and brown.
Truth to power.
And it's time for New York to take a progressive stance and eradicate the lingering remnants of slavery, the legacy within our state. And for those who don't know, now you know. For those who don't know, I've done research about my family going back to slavery. In 1860, all the owners had to do was list male or female and approximate age. And that's in my family's history. In Athens, Georgia. Slavery has a negative impact on everyone that it touches. The effort is part of a national push, 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, that bans enslavement of involuntary servitude except as a form of criminal punishment. And we've seen movies where you had, people incarcerated, digging ditches and everything like that, and they didn't do it, say, I volunteer. They were made to do it.
That's right.
And if you didn't do it, you suffered the consequences. So that exception has long permitted the exploitation of labor by convicted felons, and that ain't right. Is that right?
That ain't right.
Is that right?
That ain't right.
When I found out that this exception existed, I thought we have to go and fix this and get it fixed the right way. And the right way through legislative action. To our colleagues getting it done, and the idea that anyone could say slavery is okay when it's involuntary servitude for a person in prison has to rip out your soul and rip it out and say that it's okay?
It's not
okay.
It's okay?
No, never okay. Never.
Oh my gosh. So our Constitution should reflect the values and beliefs of our state, and the notion that we could ever justify slavery under the guise of involuntary servitude for incarcerated individuals is morally repugnant. This cause should transcend political divisions and unite us all. Are we united as one?
Yes.
Are we united to go where?
Forward.
What number?
13.
To achieve this, we must pass the No Slavery Act to enshrine in our state constitution the end of forced labor and complete abolition of slavery without exception. 7 other states, it must have been said, have recently chosen to abolish slavery without exceptions in their state constitution. And it's time for New York, supposedly the Empire State, where New York State is the forefront of labor as far as organized labor. But here in New York State, incarcerated individuals, if they're volunteering like this, or if they're being told they got to do it or suffer the consequences, they're being paid how much? 10 cents. How much?
13 cents.
13 cents? I heard it was 10 cents an hour. So if they work 10 hours, that's $1. The 7 states are Alabama, Colorado, Nebraska, Utah, Tennessee, Vermont, and Oregon. And when is the time to take care of this?
Now.
right.
What amendment are we trying to change?
13.
13th Amendment.
Forward.
13th Amendment.
Forward.
Thank you, everyone.
13! Forward! 13! Forward! What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now!
Right now.
Before I announce our next speaker, I just want to acknowledge that Assemblymember Eddie Gibbs, a formerly incarcerated individual, he was here and is a co-sponsor of the bill. He had to step off, though. The next speaker that I am going to announce is Anna Kellis of Ithaca.
Let's go.
All right. Yeah! All right. Upstate. All right.
Okay. Woo! This one's moving, everyone. Why you see us all smiling? Because this one's moving and this one's gonna pass.
That's right.
This one's gonna pass this session. So thank you so much to the sponsors. So much for all the work that you've done on this. I wanna take a moment to stop and acknowledge some people feel really uncomfortable that we use the word slavery on this.
That's all right.
They feel uncomfortable, but the thing is, we have to speak the truth.
Yes.
And when you force people to do labor and they are in a confined environment that they cannot leave, that is the definition of slavery. If you are an able-bodied person in the prison system and you refuse to do labor, you can lose your good time.
Yes.
You could be physically abused. And I say this because it happens. That is demoralizing. That is removing people's dignity. So not only is it slavery and people are forced, but they have their dignity removed at the same time. That is what we are ending with this piece of legislation. We have a company, Corecraft, that makes a profit off the backs of slavery of over $600 million a year.
That ain't right.
That ain't right.
That ain't right.
They need to pay people, they need to offer a job, and people need to choose to do it.
That's right.
And when we have that, and we have wages that treat people with dignity, then we know we have arrived. And we are so far from that.
That's right.
That's it. That's simple. 2 steps. The first step, 13 forward.
13 forward.
That's first step. First step. Second step, these 2 beautiful people
That's right.
are gonna change the wages. And every single one of us is gonna follow in line with them and make it happen as a family and as a team.
That's right.
We are all here together to get this done. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. 13 forward. 13 forward. What do we want? Freedom. When do we want it?
Now, the next speaker we have coming up is Stephen Raga of Queens.
All right. Come on, Queen. All right, Queen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. 13th!
Forward.
13th!
Forward.
13th!
Forward.
I was said earlier, thank you for everybody joining us in the last few days. The bill is moving like they said.
Right, that's right.
So we just gotta keep up the energy, keep up this collaboration we got here up in Albany, keep their feet to the fire here. As the senator said, you know, we're here fighting that original sin, slavery, this continuing sin, slavery. And in the next few days, we're gonna end this sin in the state of New York. I grew up here in New York State in this educational system. They taught me New York is one of those good northern states that you have freedom in. Not in 2023, in the 1800s. So how are we today still fighting for this? And there is a possibility that we could go home after session and not pass this. That's not gonna happen this week.
That's right.
So let's keep it happening. Let's put it together so we can move together for the next policy that we're talking about and making sure that our incarcerated workers in New York get their fair share of wages, benefits, and dignity. So let's go do it, guys. Let's bring this home this week.
13 forward. 13 forward. 13 forward. 13
Forward! The next speaker we have up next is Assemblywoman Monique Chandler Waterman of Brooklyn.
All right,
A lot of Brooklyn in the house.
Thank you.
I want to thank the sponsors on this bill, to my colleague, Assemblyman Epstein, and also to Senator Myrie. Now, we talk about when we went to school and what we were taught in school. We were taught slavery ended, and then we came to that nightmare of realizing it was just, politicized in a different way. We live with equity and justice in our system. It's a multi-layer issue that requires a multifaceted approach. One of the layers here that we're talking about is a major layer to end the slavery that they're legalizing today in our criminal justice system. End it. End it. And then also wage theft. We want to make sure that they're getting paid the amount when they opt in to want to do this. That's right. You don't lose, you don't become less human. What was it, 1/5 of a person, and we're now nobody, and we don't have any choice, we have no options. We can't continue saying that the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude and punishment for a crime. That's the exact definition of what we're doing today. We're moving down the riverside. And what we're gonna do is make sure that this gets passed. And I'm standing in solidarity with my colleagues to make sure we move forward. We gotta be about it. We're not gonna just keep on talking about it layer by layer, a multi-layer issue that needs a multifaceted approach. Here's the multifaceted approach. And this is not it. We gotta continue moving. So this is one piece of legislation. We're going to keep on going with common sense legislation. I'm New York State Assemblywoman Monique Chandler Waterman, Covenant, Brooklyn, East Flatbush, Canarsie, Brownsville, and Crown Heights. Thank you. 13!
Forward! Next up, we have Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz. Oh, she left.
She was too fast.
We're going to acknowledge Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz. Next up, we have, where are we? Dana Levenberg representing Westchester.
All right, it's not Brooklyn, but is Westchester in the house? All right, not bad, not bad. So we're here today because of slavery. Slavery is what actually our country was built on the backs of slaves. And then at some point, we declared independence from slavery. And even this month, we're going to be celebrating Juneteenth. Juneteenth is sometimes called America's second Independence Day, which is true in the sense that it came around 90 years after the Declaration of Independence. Others call it America's real Independence Day because it was the first day everyone in the United States was legally free. But we know better because we haven't really gotten there yet. We know that we still have slavery in this country in our prisons. Last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I had an opportunity to walk the halls of Sing Sing. And what did I see there? I saw human beings that were not being treated like human beings because there's forced labor. They're not getting paid working wages. They're not able to support their families. And when they come out, which we know 95% of those who are incarcerated will come out, they're not going to come out in a better situation. They're going to come out in a worse situation because they're being treated like slaves. We need to get rid of this in our Constitution so that we can celebrate Juneteenth with pride in New York State and not with embarrassment. And we're going to continue to fight for this, and we're going to get it done this session. Thank you to all of the advocates for being here today and for pushing 13 forward. Thank you.
13 forward! What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now!
The next speaker we have is Nyla Awan, Deputy Policy Director of the New York Civil Liberty Union. I'm sorry, I was saying to you.
Listen, don't apologize. Don't apologize. Where they at? Woo! 13! All right.
Hi, The New York Civil Liberties Union is pleased to stand as part of the 13th Forward Coalition calling for fundamental change to New York State's prison labor system. As the creator of the blueprint for the modern-day prison labor system, it is incumbent that New York State unequivocally that people will not be forced to work in slave-like conditions. When the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution was passed, ending slavery except as punishment for a crime, it created a floor for states, not a ceiling. And while multiple states have since taken steps to end the system of forced labor in their prisons, New York, the founding architect of those very systems, has failed to take similar measures. That's right. It is time for New York to act to ensure that no person will be punished or threatened with punishment such as solitary confinement, loss of family visitation, or lengthened sentences for refusing to work for 10 to 65 cents an hour in unsafe conditions. It is time for New York to ensure that families are not forced to go into debt supporting incarcerated loved ones. That's right. It is time for New York to set people up for successful entry into the workforce upon release from incarceration and recognize the value of all labor. Every day, incarcerated workers churn out goods for profit. And throughout the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, while they produced hand sanitizer and PPE, those very same goods were withheld from them as COVID tore through carceral settings in the state. The No Slavery in New York Act would outlaw forced labor in New York and is the first step forward in the critical fight to advance labor rights for people who are incarcerated in the state. We call on the legislature to advance and pass this legislation without delay.
That's right. What do we want? Freedom. When do we want it?
Now.
I don't believe you. What do we want?
Freedom.
When do we want it?
Now.
13.
Forward.
13.
Forward.
13. Forward.
Next up, we have Assemblywoman Jessica Gonzalez Rojas.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
What do we have, 4 days left?
Yeah.
I'm proud to stand here, as always, with this powerful coalition to fight against the slave wages and slave labor here in New York State. I represent Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, Corona, Woodside, and Astoria. I am within walking distance of Rikers Island. The bridge to Rikers is in my district. I have walked there many times. I have spoken to people many times. I have gone to Bedford Hills many times, and I'm struck by the stories of women who are forced to work for 7 cents an hour. 7 cents an hour. And then some of us told me they have the good jobs at the DMV, $1.15 an hour. And oftentimes they get out and not able to get full-time jobs at the DMV.
Right.
We have an opportunity to end this in the next 4 days. I want to commend the sponsor, Assemblymember Harvey Epstein. He has been relentless in fighting for this bill. We are closer than ever. We are closer than ever to bring some semblance of dignity to the folks who are behind bars. So what do we want? 13?
Forward.
13?
Forward.
13?
Forward.
Let's get it done. Thank you.
13.
Next up, we have Assemblywoman Farrah Foster.
All right, Brooklyn! Yeah! Give me your show. Thank you. Hi, good morning. I'm Assemblymember Farrah Forrest, and I am very happy to be standing with y'all today. I'm also very happy to be standing with the sponsor of this bill, Harvey Epstein. I also want to say that the person you see standing next to Harvey Epstein saying that we need to end slavery as it exists in our carceral system today is a black socialist woman working day in and day out to end the roots that capitalism has laid deep, deep within the soils of American soil. Understand that when the 13th Amendment came in, and they added that little clause, except when in custody, that is capitalism kicking and rearing its ugly head. Because at the end of the day, when we look at the basis of what the American foundation is, it is workforce. Some way, somehow, they need to make sure that people will work. Now, it isn't for the glory of the community, but rather the glory of people's private coffers. So when we say end slavery, we're actually attacking capitalism at its roots. The for-profit system that continually emphasizes putting black bodies behind bars. When we talk about clean slate, we're trying to fix the problem of capitalism. I'm saddened to say that it's businesses that are at the forefront of clean slate. It's sad, but it's true. It's sad, but it's true. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about workforce. We're talking about money in the Waltons' pockets. We're talking about money in Bezos' pockets. We're talking about money to line up the state coffers, but yet none of it goes back to the community.
That's true. That's right.
So when we say end slavery, we're talking about end capitalism right at its roots. We will not put black bodies in front or behind or whatever, or put them below profits. Harvey, I stand with you, my brother, in this. No more Rikers.
Okay.
No more Bedford Hills.
Okay.
No more Sing Sing. Because we know that every trumped up charge is more money in somebody's pockets, and I don't stand for it. Thank you.
13!
Up next, we have Assemblywoman Sarah Hannah Sharista of the Hudson Valley.
All right, Hudson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm proud to be here once again on behalf of Mid-Hudson Valley District 103 to say that we must end slavery everywhere, not just some slavery with some asterisks and some caveats. I want to follow up on what Assemblymember Farah said. Capitalism is a system that looks to cheapen lives and put everybody's lives at the mercy of ever-growing profits. It demolishes everything precious and valuable that is in its path so that it can make money grow. And this is what that's about. This incarceration system is a way to cheapen the value of the most valuable thing any person has, and the biggest power any person has, and that is the power and the value of their own labor. And we are here to say that labor of all people must be protected. We have fought for things that once were considered not possible, such as a 5-day weekend. We still do want a 4-day weekend as well. But we want people to have dignified lives. We want people's basic protections to be protected, and there is nothing as basic as one's own labor that is coming from one's own body, and the family, and the family and friends that each person is putting their labor towards. So 4 more days, as all of my colleagues have already said, and I am proud to stand here once again to show statewide support for this legislation and a statewide call to end slavery in all places. Thank you so much.
Up next, we have Assemblyman Brian Cunningham.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
13.
Forward.
13.
Forward.
So I just got into Albany this morning, and the first thing I saw when I got on my desk was a letter from a correctional facility that myself and Eddie Gibbs visited this year. And the letter was really short. I'll read it to you. Don't leave this session without passing 13 forward.
Come on now.
The letter was very short. So Harvey, you have my full support, brother. We're gonna get this through Ways and Means this week, and we're gonna get it done by Thursday. Thank you so much for all your advocacy, for your fight, and to make sure we end slavery in New York.
And all the way from Rochester, we have Assemblyman Damon Meeks.
Hey, it's funny you said that because I just got in from Rochester. Yeah, I had the honor of being a keynote speaker at the Black Scholars event. We celebrated 500 students, all 3.0 GPAs and better. Absolutely. So I'm Assemblyman Damon Meeks, representing the 137th Assembly District. A book that I decided to pick up again, and I suggest you all pick this up. Autobiography of Frederick Douglass. And there's a new forward in this book, and I'd like to share that with you. It says, families trapped in poverty and systemic injustices. Children denied civil rights because of race. A nation with immense potential for freedom spiraling into prejudice, violence, and hate. The country Frederick Douglass knew over 100 years ago is strikingly similar to the one we live in today. The truth, lessons, and hope he offered during his remarkable lifetime not only helped shape Abraham Lincoln's presidency and the American Civil Rights Movement, they can guide and inspire us in our own cultural movement. Born into slavery in 1818, Douglass escaped to New York City at the age of 20, determined to tell his story and fight for the rights of all men and women to be free. I pose this simple question. The great orator, Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, Frederick Douglass, would he give up one form of slavery and accept another form of slavery? No. Absolutely not. So we look back historically when there was a so-called end of chattel slavery, and we still, to this day, deal with a form of slavery throughout the prisons of New York State. I say that we take up the mantle, as our ancestors did, and commit to be abolitionists, ending all forms of slavery in the state of New York. Thank you.
What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now, I want to go ahead and kindly acknowledge Assemblywoman Tapia from the 86th District, more widely known as the Boogie Down Bronx. And then I'm going to go ahead and call up Gino Brown, a formerly incarcerated individual.
Thank you, everyone. Peace and greetings. My name is Gino Jamal Ali Brown. I did 18 years of an indeterminate sentence of 6 to 18, and I maxed out in the penitentiary system. In 2008, the Department of Corrections Time Allowance Committee took all of my good time credit for political reasons. Why I say political reasons? Because I went on a hunger strike due to litigations that I had pending in the courts at that time. I did not have those good time credits taken away. Recommended, pardon me, but those credits was taken away anyway. The retaliation was merely because of a peaceful demonstration of the litigations that I had pending in those courts, right? I had 6 years worth of good time, and they took it all, forced me to remain in their custody from 2008 to 2014.
That ain't right.
Another 6 years, under conditions the federal court classified as cruel and unusual punishment. On the top of this, I was refused 7 times at the parole board. The 7th hit was past my max date. That treatment has caused me to experience slavery, to experience what that means, to be feeling like chattel property, transferred from facility, or should I say one plantation to another, to be treated as subhuman by the next superintendent, deputy superintendent, or correction officer. That's right. I could never get those years back. Although they may be opportunity for healing, the permanent scarring will always remain. Right? After I maxed out in 2014, I was able to slowly begin to get my life back together. Since 2015, I got into a program where I started to work as a machinist, and I began to continue to work in that field as a machine operator and graduated from Monroe Community College.
All right.
The above reason I mentioned why we need these two historical bills passed. The End of Slavery Act will amend the New York Constitution and abolish the exception clause for good. These two acts, the Fairness and Opportunity of Corrections Act passed so that the ex-incarcerated worker can have a true opportunity for rehabilitation, adequate housing, and employment. I'd like to thank these two legislators for implementing these acts, for being able to have the courage to stand up and say that slavery, as we know it in an exception clause, is unworthy of existence in this day and time. I thank all of y'all for your time. Appreciate you.
I want to just thank everybody for their time. I know that we've been going on for a while. Y'all been standing there. So we're going to be wrapping this up shortly. I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to Senator Brooke, another co-sponsor of the bill. And Assemblywoman Solange. I'm going to go ahead and call up Audrey Johnson, a formerly incarcerated advocate, with a little piece of light to close us out.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I want to thank everyone that's out here supporting the bill, here to fight the cause to end slavery. I want to shout out those that's coming behind us, who's supporting us as well. It's like a collaboration here. But I'm going to tell you, I'm a formerly incarcerated woman who made bread, who made license plates. And if I didn't want to get up to go to work, you're being fined and you're being locked down. You're being thrown in shoe for non-compliance. And so I wanted to know, and when I asked questions, show me where that I should be locked down for not willing to work as a slave for 10 cents at the moment. 10 cents. Tell me why I have to be locked down. Why? Because you want to continue to use people that's incarcerated and feel like that we don't have no rights. You make people think they don't have no rights, that their rights was taken because they committed a crime, and some who didn't commit a crime but been convicted and been locked down behind the bars, so you feel you can do what you wanted to do. Today we end slavery. That's right. Today we end it. Right. We move forward with 13 Forward Amendment. I ask everyone who has not signed on to sign on, to take into consideration that we are human beings just like you. The chair you're sitting in, we made it. The pen you're using, we made it. So you are working off our heart labor. We deserve to have $7. We deserve to have $10, not just for ourselves, but if my daughter want to go on a school trip, I can send her $10 to pay for that trip. Don't try to take away my human rights, because I still have them. And I'm speaking for those who's not here to speak for themselves. What we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! What we want? Freedom! When do